I'm working on benches for the Montessori. This is going to be basically the same technique I use when I build the shelves. If you haven't seen that video, you might want to watch it, because today I'm only going to be going over the basics. I'm not really going over all the detail on everything I've done. If you search by my name, you'll be able to find my channel. And in the channel, you'll find the shelving units, and you'll also find some tables and some other information on the Montessori furniture. This today is the benches. I also have another one coming up, which is going to be on a puzzle cabinet and some little boxes for reading materials and so on. But anyhow, if you're thinking about building furniture, then this is the place to be, I guess. So first thing off, this is the bench, and the dimensions of this bench, it's not set in anything. This is just my design. The bottom of the bench, which is this, 33.5 inches long. The top, 38 inches long, and that gives me 1.5 inches overhang. And all of this wood is made out of, all these articles are made out of 3/4 inch birch plywood. Now, when I buy the plywood, I get it 4x8 sheet, but I have them rip it down in half, so that I'm dealing with a sheet of plywood that's a foot wide and 8 feet long. It's actually not a foot wide because there's a saw curve. So in order to get around that, I've made each one of these sections 11 3/4 inches wide. So even though the saw curve takes off 1/8 of an inch, I still have room to make all 11 3/4 inch panels. So again, you can see you can get the whole shelf out of one strip of wood, approximately a foot wide. The only thing you don't have is this little brace. So again, this will be the middle shelf, and this is 33.5 inches long. This is the top shelf. This is 38 inches long, and this piece here you're able to get, if you wanted to make the benches only 11 inches high, you'd be able to get your two, or excuse me, it would be 13 inches high. You'd be able to get two ends off of this. All you'd have to do is to make your top a little shorter, or make your bottom a little shorter, whatever, because you're just on the borderline of getting the two pieces, which would be 11 1/4 inches high, or excuse me, 12 1/4 inches high, will give you a 13 inch bench when you add that to the thickness of the wood, the 3/4 inch. So anyhow, what I do is, first of all, cut it to size. The next step is I edge it, all right? And again, if you looked at the video for the shelving unit, you'll see how I do the edging, how I make the edging, so on and so forth. And if you notice, it's just hanging over. It's also high, all right? And that's how you want it. It makes it a lot easier to put it on if you don't have to be exact and fuss around with it. You just make it long, and then we trim it off later. And let me show you how I do that. This part here, I usually use a scroll saw, but you can use any type of a saw, as long as it's not, so aggressive that it breaks this stuff off. You want to cut that off smooth. Okay? So let me just give you an idea of how I smooth this out. I won't work on this one because I still have to cut this one off. But this one here, all right, you can see that I've already cut it. These little pieces here. All right. Now it's nice and flush. Now you have this part here. I don't know if you can see that or not. All right. So what I do is I put this into the router table, and I've got a rounding over bit, but I have it very, very low, so it's only barely touching. All right. I don't want to take off too much of the wood. I just want to make it a little rounded over. Very quick to do, though. Now, with the shelving units, I wasn't real concerned with the sharp edges, although I don't have any sharp edges. But when you're dealing with the furniture, you really want to make sure that there isn't anything that the kids can get slivers or anything on. So I can just barely get that with my thumbnail. So I just take that and sand it. Right? Now that makes it perfectly smooth. Now the other thing is, before I start cutting any of this stuff up, I varnish all of the wood. And the reason is it's a lot easier to varnish one long board than it is to try to varnish all of the separate pieces of wood. So I give them 2 coats of varnish. On the shelving units I gave 3. I completely finished them, but this is different because, as I said, when I sand it, I'm taking off all the varnish on the edges, so I might as well finish my final coat later. So after I've got the top panel, made, now if you notice on the top panel, it's edged on the back and it's edged on the front. You do the back first. Right? This is the top. You do this part first, and the reason is when you're looking at it, you don't want to be seeing the little edge. So you put that on first, finish it off, then you put the fronts on and the backs on. Okay? So you've got your back cut out, you got your bottom shelf cut out. Now with the bottom shelf, you don't have to finish off the end because it's hidden in there. So in order to make the ends, decide how high you want your bench to be. This bench is a 16-inch bench, which means that these are 15 1/4 inches high. The wood sits on top, so this will take hundreds of pounds. You could put 2 adults to sit on this and it wouldn't break on you. Some of them you see, the benches, the tops are recessed down here, and they're only held on with pegs, and that just isn't strong. So I like it sitting right on top of the legs. So as far as the legs go, here's one. You notice I've already got the edges done. Make a little template. Now there's nothing technical about this. I simply took a paint can and drew it around, and that was it. Now I also tapered these a little. I don't know what this is. Let's see, this is right, about 2.5 inches at the bottom, and then it goes up. Now this is set for 16 inches, so all you do is put it at the 16-inch mark, trace it out, and you've got your leg. Well, one other little point here. When you're cutting, make sure that you cut every single piece of wood before you change your setting. The legs, the tops, everything you're doing, do it in a batch at a time, because otherwise you're going to make mistakes, or the wood is going to come out and it's going to be 1/8 of an inch shorter because you didn't take into consideration a saw blade or something. It's going to happen. So I like to cut everything out at once, move on to the next thing, cut the legs out, cut the tops out, cut the bench out, whatever. All right. One other thing, be real careful with the saws. This is called a jessam, and it's really a nice tool. Unfortunately, I didn't use it when I cut this out, and I ruined one. All right. I went through the saw, and it just ruined it. If I'd had this on, it holds it, it doesn't kick back on you, whatever. But I didn't have it on, so I ruined a piece of wood. So anyhow, let's just assume that this, I've already set this up, I've already cut it out, right? The next thing I'm going to do is I put everything together with pocket holes. So, if you haven't used a pocket hole, this is a pocket hole jig. They're super handy, very easy to work. Everything I've done, I use 4 screws on, and this is how easy it is. Be sure you're putting it on the back and not the front. Right? There's one. And there's really no spacing here. You just do what you want. Well, I shouldn't say that. Let me take that back. I shouldn't say that. there is the spacing that you want the center, right? And that's what this is for. I've got it lined up on the right side, and then I just make a little mark, and that will tell me where my brace is going to be. And here's a pencil. So you see this little right here? All right, so I just put that there, put an X over there, and now I'll know which side that my brace is going to be, and I won't put a screw hole there. So anyhow, going back to putting, there's two. I avoid this spot here where the brace is going to go. Three. And four. Yeah. It's that simple to do your pocket holes. Now, as far as the assembly goes, it couldn't be easier. This will be your leg. This will be your bottom shelf. This will be a top shelf. And this will be a brace. So what you do is you set your top shelf down, decide how far in your overhang is going to be. So in my case, I started at 2 1/4 inches. And connect the dots. Then, again, this leg isn't cut out, but you get the idea. All right. Put that there. And with the pocket hole screws, which are these, put it in and screw it together. Now, I don't want to do that because I don't want to take them out. It'll make the holes bigger if I take them in and out and put them together. So, let's say you got your first shelf in. Then you put the next shelf. Put your next shelf in, and I'll take this one here as an example. So that would be your shelf, or that would be your legs with the shelf in. That gives you a perfect spacing. Screw it down. Once you have the legs screwed down, you can take your bench, your shelf out. The next thing you do is you put the brace in. Now, remember I drew a line on there. I would have a line on the corresponding leg. Put that there. And I like to put a clamp on it between the two legs, just to hold things together. All right. So then, screw this down, screw it to the leg first, and then screw it to the top. Once you have that done, do the same thing on the other side. After you've got that, grab some spacers. Now these spacers have already been, I've already cut these spacers based on this bench. Your spacers may not be the same. So, again, it's going to be like that. Right, it'll be like that. That'll be screwed together. Take your spacer, put your spacer in, your other spacer in. Let's see. Without the cutout, it gets confusing. All right. Then, since you have your spacer in, there's no measuring. Just drop your next shelf on top. Then your leg will be down here. That gives you the perfect spacing every time. Screw this together, put a clamp on it, screw it together. When that's screwed together, you can take your spacers out and your bench is done. There you go. Let's turn this over, take a look at it. Top screwed down with 4 screws. Right? The legs screwed to the top. Then on the bar that's going across, 2 screws at each end, 4 down the middle. This is really important because this is what makes it strong. Then 4 screws on the bottom, and you're done. So, there you go. There's the bench. Now, coming up, you see these little cabinets over here. That's for the reading curriculum. Cards or something goes in those. So I'll be having a video on how those are made. So anyhow, that's it for making benches. And if you got any questions, just put them down below in comments. And I guess that's it. I've got some more cutting to do. Oh, this, by the way, this wood over here, that's going to be for the puzzle map cabinet. So that's it. Hope this helps you.